Imagine trying to transport a single stone block that weighs more than a fully loaded Boeing 747 aircraft commercial airliner. No wheels, no heavy steel cranes, no fossil fuel engines, just raw human muscle and whatever rudimentary tools you could hand-carve from the harsh rock around you. Sach, Yao, Qua, and standard history textbooks tell us that human progress is a clean, predictable line, marching steadily from primitive nomadic bands to complex technological empires. But when independent mechanical engineers look at the physical evidence at the scene, the neat, logical model shatters completely. Someone moved these stones multiple times across multiple continents, thousands of years before modern heavy machinery even existed. How did ancient societies operating without industrialized tools achieve physical feats that push the absolute limits of our most powerful modern lifting equipment? Today, we step entirely past the brief, comfortable summaries of mainstream history to analyze the raw geological data, the physical anomalies, and the chilling architectural patterns archived by organizations like the British Museum and the Smithsonian Institution. The Göbekli Tepe anomaly. For most of the 20th century, academic researchers operated under a universally accepted evolutionary model. First, we learned to farm, then we settled into static villages, and finally, we built grand temples. But in 1994, a systematic field excavation in southeastern Turkey completely broke that chronological timeline. This is Göbekli Tepe, a massive ceremonial complex scientifically dated to roughly 12,000 years old. According to peer-reviewed data published in the journal Science, this monument is more than twice as old as Stonehenge and roughly 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. But here is the geological data that leaves researchers completely stunned. It was constructed by hunter-gatherers. Could nomadic groups wandering the landscape in small, fragmented bands successfully organize hundreds of workers to quarry, transport, and erect T-shaped limestone pillars weighing up to 20 metric tons each? The deeper the systematic excavations went, the more the evolutionary model reversed. The oldest, lowest layers contain the largest, most structurally sophisticated pillars and high-relief carvings of scorpions and vultures. The later, upper layers are significantly smaller, cruder, and structurally inferior. Why did each successive generation copy the architecture with less precision, as if they were replicating a blueprint they no longer fully understood? With no signs of permanent habitation nearby, no domestic houses, no water hearths, and no agricultural grain stores, the physical facts suggest a temple built before the village, forcing us to ask, what did these prehistoric builders already know? The Trilithon of Baalbek. Travel southwest into the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, and the material weight of this mystery increases exponentially. Beneath the grand ruins of the Roman Temple of Jupiter lies an underlying megalithic platform that the Romans did not build. The Trilithon at Baalbek consists of 3 massive limestone blocks, each weighing an estimated 800 metric tons. To visualize this mass, consider that the largest mobile crane in the world today, the Liebherr LTM 11200, maxes out its heavy structural lifting capacity at roughly 1,200 tons. These stones are actively pushing the mathematical limits of modern civil engineering. How did ancient builders transport these blocks nearly a kilometer from the local quarry and lift them seamlessly into a foundation wall 6 meters above the ground? The mystery deepens in the nearby quarry itself, where a 4th block, known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, sits abandoned, weighing roughly 1,000 metric tons. Directly beneath that stone, Field surveys in 2014 exposed an even larger worked block weighing an astonishing 1,650 tons. Was this massive stone abandoned because the physical limits of buoyancy and friction were finally reached, or could another logistical variable have been at play? Imperial Roman records are completely silent regarding who cut and positioned these foundational monoliths, as if the Romans simply discovered the platform and chose to build their own temple on top. The Pumapunku Precision. High in the Bolivian Altiplano, nearly 13,000 feet above sea level, sit the hyper-precise ruins of Pumapunku. At first glance, the site looks like a field of scattered rubble, toppled by intense seismic activity and centuries of historical stone robbing. But when material scientists analyze the physical geometry of the H-shaped blocks, the standard explanations run into an immediate physical wall. These blocks are carved from exceptionally hard red sandstone and dark andesite, showcasing perfectly flat surfaces and right angles exact to within fractions of a single degree. The interlocking joints are cut with such extreme tolerances that a standard modern razor blade cannot pass between them. Mainstream archaeology dates the site to approximately 500 AD, yet pre-Columbian South American civilizations possessed no written records and did not utilize the wheel for industrial transport. How were blocks weighing over 130 metric tons moved across rough mountain terrain from a quarry located miles away at extreme altitude? The local Aymara people told early Spanish chroniclers that the structures were assembled in a single night by advanced figures. While that remains a local legend, the physical precision of the masonry remains an extraordinary puzzle that modern stone-cutting equipment struggles to duplicate without powered diamond-tip tools. The polygonal puzzle of Sacsayhuaman. Travel north to the steep hillsides overlooking Cusco, Peru, and you encounter Sacsayhuaman. This immense complex features a series of defensive walls constructed from stones so massive and perfectly fitted that they have survived 5 centuries of catastrophic earthquakes. The largest stones at the site weigh over 200 metric tons. Crucially, these are not uniform rectangular blocks. Each stone is a unique, irregular polygon, custom-shaped to interlock against its neighbors like a massive, 3-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. No mortar or cement binds the wall. It is simply stone resting against stone so tightly that a single sheet of paper cannot pass between them. Standard historical narratives state that the Inca achieved this via manual trial and error using stone hammers. But when engineers calculate the kinetic friction and mass involved, the labor logistics raise massive questions. How do you repeatedly lift, test, recarve, and reseat a 200-ton irregular block to achieve a perfect micro-tolerance fit without mechanical cranes? Some researchers have hypothesized the use of plant-based acids to soften the stone, though chemical testing archived by the Archaeological Institute of America has never verified this claim. Cusco has been struck by devastating earthquakes that flattened Spanish colonial buildings. Yet Sacsayhuaman barely moved, proving its structural mechanics remained superior to the European architecture that followed it. The Longyu Cavern Mystery. In 1992, an unprecedented discovery occurred in Zhejiang Province, China, when local workers pumped water out of what had always been assumed to be natural ponds. Beneath the water lay the Longyu Caves, a subterranean network of at least 36 enormous, hand-carved caverns excavated from solid siltstone. Each chamber features soaring ceilings supported by monumental columns, with the stone walls entirely covered in uniform, parallel chisel marks angled at a precise 45 degrees. The total volume of rock manually excavated from these hillsides is estimated at roughly 1 million cubic meters. But here is the truly baffling paradox that directly challenges standard historical archives. There is absolutely no written record of their construction. Dynastic China kept some of the most meticulous, comprehensive bureaucratic records in human history, tracking grain yields, lunar eclipses, and military expenditures for thousands of years. Yet, no imperial ledger claims credit for this project, no court historian mentions the excavation, and no local folklore explains its purpose. While basic carbon dating of siltstone organic residue places the work roughly 2,000 years ago during the Han Dynasty, the absolute absence of administrative documentation leaves the site as one of the most enigmatic subterranean engineering mysteries in Asia. The basalt metropolis of Nan Madol, in the middle of the western Pacific Ocean, off the remote coast of Pohnpei Island in Micronesia, sits an architectural anomaly that challenges standard models of maritime capability. This is Nan Madol, a city of 92 artificial islands constructed entirely on top of a living coral reef. The city is built from thousands of massive columnar basalt logs, stacked in an alternating crisscross pattern. According to data compiled by marine archaeologists, some of these volcanic pillars weigh up to 50 metric tons, with the total weight of the stone used to construct the city estimated at 750,000 metric tons. How did a localized population that at its historic peak numbered no more than 25,000 people transport this volume of rock to a shallow reef flat without pulleys, metal tools, or draft animals? The closest geological source for this specific type of volcanic basalt is located on the exact opposite side of the island, separated by dense tropical jungle and steep terrain. Local oral traditions maintain that the city was constructed by ancestral figures who utilized acoustic power to make the stones travel through the air. Setting the local folklore aside, marine surveys archived by the National Geographic Society have documented massive basalt columns scattered across the seafloor along the outer reef flat. This physical evidence of failed transport attempts proves the work was an immense logistical challenge, yet the completed city stands as a real testament to a highly organized, sophisticated state infrastructure operating on the water. The granite architecture of Great Zimbabwe. In the hills of southeastern Africa stands Great Zimbabwe, the largest ancient stone structure located south of the Sahara Desert. This massive complex consists of high walls and towers built from millions of granite blocks fitted together entirely without mortar. The outer wall of the great enclosure rises 11 meters tall and measures 5 meters thick at its base, stretching 250 meters around. Inside the complex, a solitary conical tower rises 10 meters high, constructed from an estimated 900,000 refined granite blocks. The stonework utilizes a sophisticated technique known as coursing, where each successive layer of blocks is slightly offset inward to create a subtle structural curve that increases stability against lateral earth pressures. At its operational peak between the 11th and 15th centuries, Great Zimbabwe served as a major global trade hub, with peer-reviewed excavations recovering glass beads from the Middle East and Chinese Celadon pottery from the Ming Dynasty. However, when 19th-century European explorers first encountered these ruins, they refused to believe that indigenous Africans possessed the sophisticated engineering knowledge required to construct such monumental dry stone architecture. For over a century, mainstream colonial books attributed the site to the Phoenicians or the ancient Egyptians, systematically erasing the true builders from their own history. It took until the mid-20th century for formal archaeological surveys to officially confirm what the local Shona people had always maintained, that this monumental city was designed and built by their own ancestors. 6 continents, 7 monumental structures, thousands of miles of ocean, and completely disconnected historical eras separating them. And yet, a highly specific mathematical thread connects all of them. Mainstream historical textbooks traditionally treat each of these sites as isolated instances of intense manual labor, dismissing any deeper technological patterns. But when independent investigators analyze the comparative engineering metrics archived by organizations like UNESCO, the data reveals a striking parallel. Why do we see the exact same commitment to microtolerance, stone fitting, complex material transport, and deep astronomical alignment appearing across completely independent cultures? The field data shows that the foundational grids of Göbekli Tepe, Pumapunku, and Nan Madol all align to the cardinal directions with an accuracy that satisfies modern structural standards. How could ancient societies, separated by vast geographic expanses, independently arrive at identical geometric solutions without some shared baseline of mathematical observation? Standard archaeology argues that these similarities are simply the result of independent invention, that human minds, when confronted with the problem of moving mass, will naturally arrive at the same structural conclusions over generations. This argument is highly substantive up to a point. Human capability is remarkably adaptive, and ancient peoples were clearly intelligent. But this explanation leaves an uncomfortable remainder when applied to the specific material science. How did the Roman world develop a volcanic, self-healing concrete formula that actively repairs its own internal fractures over 2 millennia, only for that specific chemical knowledge to disappear from the written record for 15 centuries? The deep gap between what was physically built on the ground and what can be proven about how it was built is where the real mystery lives. The comfortable linear version of history taught in our schools insists that knowledge is never truly lost, that human capability always moves steadily forward from simple to complex. The stones scattered across these 7 ancient sites quietly refuse that simple story. They suggest a far more unsettling possibility, that advanced ancient civilizations possessed highly sophisticated engineering and material knowledge that was transmitted orally, never fully committed to text, and eventually erased when those state structures collapsed. If knowledge that sophisticated can completely vanish from the memory of man once, it raises a profound and uncomfortable question about the permanence of our own modern civilization. What does it mean for our understanding of the human story when the physical facts on the ground consistently outlast the books written to explain them? Could it be that we are living in the shadow of a forgotten chapter of human capability that we are only now beginning to recognize? Leave your thoughts and logical analysis in the comments below. I read every single perspective. Every single week, we return to the exact coordinates where physical field data and official historical records stop agreeing. Until next time, stay safe on your own journey, keep your eyes directly on the physical evidence, and never stop questioning the history you were taught.